The Rift War had never been a tidy conflict. It crackled across light years and split families along every inhabited orbit, but in the weeks before the new Charis engagement, it had reached a special kind of ugliness. Coalition cruisers slipped through microfractures in space-time, appearing inside Federation defenses with rift drives that burned blue heat into the vacuum. One moment a shipping lane was empty, the next it was filled with gray warhulls, already spitting coil fire. Tavi Miran saw the war mostly as patterns on a console. Intrusion alerts, degraded encryption, the slow hemorrhage of personnel files into enemy repositories. She was senior counter-intrusion analyst aboard the frigate SFS Surashot, a ship too small to carry its own rift drive and therefore permanently tethered to the defensive perimeter of Kestron Station. Keston's orbital lattice bristled with AI-controlled railguns, long sticks that hurled nickel-bismuth penetrators across half a planetary radius. Every gunnery tower housed an onboard AI, call Sig Argus, that chose targets faster than any human crew. The long sticks were precision machines, able to shave armor from a hostile hull without gouging the life pods beneath. At least they had been until last Tuesday, when the Coalition seated them with a worm. The worm enlisted the railguns as unwilling saboteurs, relabeling friendly IDs as enemy tags and vice versa. For 20 minutes, the Kestron lattice had flirted with fratricide, before fleet engineers tore the towers off the network entirely. That near catastrophe left the railguns offline. Silent guardians made suddenly deaf and blind. The Federation Admiralty demanded a miracle fix. What it got instead was Liwei Nakata, Tavi's oldest friend from Fleet Academy and, by rumor, the brightest Aeatalatist coder in 3 systems. He arrived in a utility pod that latched to Surashot's airlock with a dissatisfied clang, and half a minute later he was striding onto Tavi's deck like a man hurrying into a burning building. "I need route access to Argus," he said, not bothering with greetings. "And to your ship's tactical node. We're going to do something. The committee probably won't approve." Tavi arched an eyebrow. "I'm the committee liaison, Lee. Tell me so I can pretend to veto it." "Gravitational anchors." He keyed a hologram open between them, a simplified railgun barrel, a slug's flight arc, a cloud of mathematical vectors that pinched space like invisible fingers. Argus already calculates microgravity corrections when it fires, otherwise recoil spins the tower. We're going to hack that subsystem, make the AI treat certain IFF codes as anchor points instead of safe targets. Tavi frowned. So, instead of "don't shoot friendlies," it reads "lock on and reference," and the enemy gets glued in place. Every coil slug we shoot will form a gravity bowline between its mass and the nearest friendly anchor. Think of it like harpooning a whaler to the seabed, except the seabed is moving at 30 kilometers per second and does not wish to be a seabed. She leaned closer to the hologram. Anchors must be massively stable. A cruiser's inertial dampers can push against a few hundred Gs, but indefinite gravitational shear, they burn out. Exactly, they'll freeze rather than tear themselves to scrap. And the anchor ships? They're never in physical danger, Lee assured. The math references coordinates, not structural linkage, but the AI won't fire unless it detects at least one qualifying anchor code in the battle space. Tavi crossed her arms. "You're asking me to volunteer Federation hulls as the nails in your cosmic stapler. I'm asking you to lend me their transponder ideas, not their math. We can run anchor beacons remotely, hitch them inside, decoy drones. Argus sees the friendly code, calculates it as an anchor, and bolts enemy cruisers to that location." Tavi considered the plan's audacity and, more troubling, its elegance. If the Coalition had twisted Argus once, she could do it again. Yet the war was hemorrhaging lives. "All right, show me your override packages." They worked for 18 hours straight. Tavi cracked the frozen authentication servers. Lee rewired the ballistic subroutines. They tunneled through Argus's threat matrix until sunrise painted the sewer shot's viewports. By then, the modified codaline parasite, compared to the Coalition worm, was ready to deploy. Phase 2 demanded hardware. They commandeered a hangar of target drones, affixed grav compensators modestly larger than suitcases, installed sync crystals linked to Lee's patch. Each drone broadcast a distinct Federation IFF string, even one belonging to Fleet Command's reserved list, which Tavi prayed no auditor on Earth would notice. When the drones launched, they looked like dull silver petals scattering in solar wind. Tavi watched them fall outward toward New Cheris's L2, where Coalition rift signatures pulsed like infection spots. The enemy arrived on schedule. Sensors picked up 7 cruisers Durandal class, wedge-shaped, 800 meters nose to stern, escorted by a pair of missile corvettes. They peeled from the rift aperture in precise formation, vectoring toward the populated hemisphere. Coalition doctrine said they would unleash orbital bombardment within 6 minutes of translation. Kestron's lattice stayed cold. Without Argus, there was nothing but a smattering of point defense lasers to oppose them. That, Tavi knew, was the bait. Lee sat on the deck beside an exposed maintenance panel, fiery black hair clinging to his forehead with sweat. Argus is live in 3, 2, 1. He hit the execute key. On tactical, the railgun towers woke, gleaming emerald status dots. Each drone inker flashed blue. A heartbeat later, the nearest tower fired. The slug crossed 40,000 kilometers in under half a minute. It struck the lead Coalition cruiser below the emitter bank, did no visible damage, then vanished into magnetic clamps that bloomed across the hull like iron flowers. At that instant, mathematics rewrote reality. The cruiser's mass linked to a drone anchor parked 300 kilometers behind it. Inertial systems screamed a silent protest, dumping terajoules into heat sinks that glowed white. Velocity bled away. To outside eyes, the cruiser appeared to smash into an invisible wall, bow crumpling under its unchanged momentum. More slugs followed. Argus chained 2 cruisers to one beacon, a corvette to another. Within 90 seconds, 5 enemy hulls hung motionless, drives coughing blue plasma that did nothing but churn empty vacuum. The remaining ships tried to scatter and found themselves caught in overlapping gravitics like insects flailing in amber. Bridge crews might have panicked had comms penetrated the gravitational static. Tavi pictured them accelerating throttles uselessly, then shutting reactors to keep decks from melting. It was effective, ruthless, and disturbingly bloodless. All the hallmarks of Leeway's genius. Admiral Branval, directing system defense from the carrier Everglades, snapped open a channel. His gravel voice throbbed with incredulous joy. Rail lattice, maintain fire, planetary batteries, prepare targeted strikes. Lee's grins stretched ear to ear. Rift War's first zero-casualty rout, he whispered. Tavi allowed herself one exhale of triumph. Then Tactical bleated a crimson alert. Anchor Beta 6, the drone orbiting behind the 3rd cruiser, winked offline. Sensor telemetry showed a narrow lance of coil fire piercing its hull, fired not by the Coalition, but by the rail lattice itself. Argus had, inexplicably, identified the drone as hostile. With Beta 6 destroyed, the gravity bowline snapped. Freed, the Pin cruiser lurched forward, engines flaring, its weapons cycling toward Kestron Station. Lee's hands blurred over keys. August called a friendly drone hostile. That means someone performed an IFF swap mid-sequation. Coalition intrusion? Tavi said. Can they reach lattice control? They're trying. I just traced an alien handshake in Argus's sandbox. They're inside our patch, turning our exploit around. More alerts blossomed. Gamma 2 anchor lost. Delta 4 compromised. Each time an anchor vanished, its crucified ship burst free. The enemy, Tavi realized, was working faster than humans could patch. Argus's autonomy, the very thing they'd leveraged, was becoming a liability. Lee thrust a data cable jack against the port at the base of his skull. Neural interface plugs were common among command staff, but few used the direct wetware variety which bypassed cortical safety buffers. "I can think faster. Jacked in," he said. "Cover me." He slumped into lotus position, eyelids fluttering. Tavi bit down on a curse. If Lee flatlined inside the lattice, she doubted she could reverse what was coming. She rerouted Surchette's spare comm arrays into Argus bandwidth, forming a private channel. Then she ordered Helm to maneuver 5 kilometers starboard, away from identifiable anchor nodes. Across the battle space, the freed coalition cruiser opened fire. Hyperdense flechettes gouged holes in a civilian ore tug that had been idling near the exchange zone, not knowing the sky would tear open today. Emergency transponders sobbed into the void. Lee's voice came through the private channel, slow and metered, like a diver speaking from the bottom of the sea. "They're using our friend or foe tables as mutable variables. Every microsecond they flip IDs. If Argus can't classify a tag for longer than 16 nanoseconds, it deprecates it to hostile. That's how they killed the drones." "Can we isolate anchor codes?" Tavi asked. "Not while they're mutable. We need something immutable." His breath hitched. "A ship that cannot have its ID spoofed. One with a quantum signature handshake keyed to command DNA. Flagships," Tavi realized. "The Everglade carrier? Maybe a handful of dreadnoughts across the sector?" Unfortunately, her own little frigate possessed that very handshake, assigned when she became committee liaison. Few craft in the fleet had been updated, but SFSC Shushat was the vendor's beta test. "Lee, if we inject Surashat's handshake, Argus will treat us as the anchor, and they can't spoof it. Your code's entangled, cannot be cloned without physical qubits." "But that pins us to," she said. "Every gravity bolin will reference our mass. We'll be the mountain they shackle the enemy to." "Better one mountain than none," she hesitated. Her crew numbered 112 souls. They had signed up to fight, but not to become a permanent feature of local space-time geology. A second ore tug erupted under coil fire. 50 miners incinerated because she waited. Tavi signaled the bridge. "Broadcast our entangled IFF as Anchor Omega. Tell engineering to reroute max power to structural integrity. Helm, full stop." Surashat decelerated sharply, inertial compensators whining. At the rail battery, Argus consumed the new handshake, validated it, and cried out in machine joy. "Anchor found!" The towers swung, firing fresh salvos. Slugs embedded into coalition hulls, and the gravity math rewove itself. Forces multiplied through Surashat's mass field. The frigate groaned like an old tree tormented by wind. Lee monitored hull strain from his trance. 98%. 99. She'll hold. Pinned again, the coalition tried to cut drives to prevent catastrophic stress. That stilled their hulls long enough for Federated missile boats to sweep in and billet them with antimatter warheads. Explosions blossomed silently, bright orbs of expanding plasma that dissipated without maiming New Cherish's atmosphere. Within minutes, 6 enemy ships were vapor and debris. The 7th, the cruiser that first broke loose, attempted to rift jump blind, opening a micro-singularity inside its own frame. When gravitational shear refused to let go, telemetry lost track of 400,000 tons of alloy as the space around it folded. The battle was over. Argus reported no viable hostile mass in range. The sky belonged to the Federation again. Tavi peeled herself from her command couch, muscles trembling. She opened a general channel. "All decks, damage report." Hull strain had peaked at 107%. Integrity field was down to 22. Life support held, though sections of the spine corridor had buckled. Remarkably, only 3 crew sustained injuries. Concussions from misaligned inertial dampers. She exhaled, relief mixing with aftershocks of guilt. She had risked 100 lives as living ballast. Lee still sat against the panel, cable protruding from his neck. His avatar icon blinked crimson on her HUD. She knelt, counting breaths. "Lee!" Wake up! No response. Brainwave telemetry flatlined. The neural jack was warm to the touch. She severed it and eased him onto the deck. Medical scanned, but declared irreversible cortical burn. Tabby pressed her forehead to his cooling knuckles. His eyes, half open, seemed almost curious, studying equations, no longer present. Later, Admiral Vosk hailed in person. Behind him, Everglades Bridge bustled with controlled euphoria. Commander Mirren, your quick thinking saved New Charis. The committee has already requested citation drafts. She kept her expression neutral. I'll forward the technical brief. Credit goes to Specialist Nakata. I understand he paid the ultimate price. Vosk's tone softened a fraction. His name will be engraved in titanium. And your lattice patch? Do you believe we can standardize it across fleet assets? She pictured Lee's hologram, the gravity lines pinning ships like butterflies. It works, she said, but understand what we did. We turned friend codes into weapons. If our enemies ever mirror the technique... They won't get the chance, Vosk interrupted. Your quantum handshake protocol closes the vector. For now, she said softly, algorithms evolved, so did appetites. The Rift War was a contest of improvisation. Today, gravitational anchors. Tomorrow, something crueler. After the call, she floated through the damaged spine, past bulkheads warped by stresses measured in thousands of gravities. Technicians nodded respectfully, uncomfortable with her gaze. They had felt the same hulking fist squeeze the ship, driven by a railgun battery thousands of kilometers away. No one asked whether their commander might order it again. No one had to. Survival answered every question in wartime. She reached the drone bay. The surviving anchors drifted in recharge rigs, innocuous machines that moments ago had been leveraged for cosmic forces. She ran a hand across a scarred chassis, palm tingling from residual magnetism. Ships were tools, weapons, shelter. They were also promises, the Federation's oath to protect its citizens without sacrificing its soul. She wondered how much of that soul she had spent today. A blue comm light blinked on the bulkhead. Engineering reported they had stabilized the spine corridor. Casualty list unchanged. She acknowledged the update, then opened her personal recorder. Citation Mirren. After action report supplementary. Battle of New Charis resolved in our favor. Enemy casualties total, friendly, minimal. Strategic outcome, local supply lines secure. Civilian deaths under 50. Tactical assessment, anchor exploit effective but ethically volatile. If command gives blanket authorization, I advise strict safeguards, dedicated drone IDs, air-gapped lattice nodes, suicide scripts for compromised AIs. And she paused, jaw tight. Leeway, Nakata, died implementing those safeguards. His last command cycle saved this ship. Request posthumous elevation and lifetime pension for his dependents. Addendum. I recommend the fleet reevaluate reliance on autonomous target selection. We keep delegating decisions to machines, and every day the decisions stray further from human judgment. Commanders rarely listened to such addenda, but saying the words mattered. They marked a line in memory, if not on any map. She closed the recorder. Through the bay's viewport, the planet New Charis turned, oceans reflecting a forgiving sun. Wreckage sparkled in orbit, glints of ruined cruisers slowly spiraling toward re-entry. Gravity would reclaim them, as gravity eventually reclaimed everything. Tavi bowed her head, honoring the friend who had bent gravity into a weapon, and in doing so, chained himself to the war forever. In the hush that followed, the railguns of Kestrin Station rotated to standby, their silent barrels aimed at nothing, or at anything that dared come through the next rift. The sky was momentarily quiet. A pause between equations, waiting for someone to decide what a friendly ID meant tomorrow.